Hello and welcome to our Concept Art Digital Painting Basics. Today we are going to be opening up Photoshop and creating a new document in A3, and what we're going to be doing is taking a pencil sketch drawing that we've done of a vehicle, which can be a car, a van, a bike, or anything else that you class as a vehicle, and we're going to be bringing it into our A3 image as such, as you can see, and we're going to be starting to paint it. So once you've opened up your drawing, drag it into your A3 file, as you can see, and to position it you might want to do Ctrl and T, and this should allow you to change the size of the image. Once you've got your image in position, what you'll want to do is make sure that you've locked it and create a new layer using the little plus button in the bottom. You then want to choose your brush and decide which colour you want to use to do your overall drawing. So for this instance I've sped up the video so you can see what I've done in a bit of a quicker pace than I would be able to draw. And you can see I'm just going around the pencil lines. Some corners I'm making a little bit thicker, or where lines join together I tend to try and make those bits a little bit thicker. And I'm just going around the whole image, as you can see. At this stage you don't want to be, or you don't need to be perfect. Just try to get the main outline. Any little areas which you might make which don't look quite right, we can always go back around and erase them and redraw them. The idea of this stage is that we're just thickening up our lines and just making it easier to see for when we add the paints in another layer. What you will see with my drawings is I've tried to do longer lines as opposed to almost sketching it out. This means that my final drawings are generally less scratchy, as they were as if I was to do this as if I was sketching with a pencil. So this vehicle that I designed here, it was almost based off of an underwater glider, something that I've seen in a few different films such as The Meg, but also in Aquaman. I quite liked the fact that they had these vehicles that travelled in the water, and so for my vehicle idea I kind of wanted to go with that theme. And when I was doing my research I realised that I quite liked that it represented kind of like a sea life type of creature. So mine is semi-related to a ray, hence the strange tail to my ship. So you can see that I've started to add in some details, such as like the indicators on the back. You might not want to add all of your details in this layer. You might want to put them into a different layer, but that choice is up to you. So what I'm just doing here is I'm renaming that layer and I'm just creating a new layer. And with this new layer, this is where I'm adding in my extra details, because sometimes it's nice to have these on a separate layer as opposed to on the main layer, just because it means I can easily edit them if I start to paint, or if I decide I want to change them, or sometimes I might want to put my details above the main ones in case they overlap. Or I might want to make my details darker and maybe my outlines a lot lighter. Sometimes when you're taking your final design into Photoshop, there might be some areas that you decide not to add in, such as you can see near the front of my ship, or where the lights are. I've slightly changed where they go. You can always edit them or remove them or keep them exactly the same. It's entirely up to you. I think sometimes when you take things into digital software, you kind of just might change them slightly depending on how you feel or how your work's going. So what I'm doing at this stage is I know that I want there to be strong light coming from these bits. So all I'm doing is I'm putting in kind of like a base layer of where the light's coming out of the underwater glider, ship, whatever it's called, just to kind of get an idea of the kind of colours that I want to use and how this might overall look. Make sure as you go through you are locking your layers and hiding any layers that you don't want to see. So this layer that I'm creating now, I'm just checking the different brushes to see which ones I want to use, and Photoshop has a range of amazing different brushes that you can use, and of course you can always use others as well to import in, or you can create your own brushes. But for this example, I'm just trying to find out what brush I want to use to create a base layer across the glider. I'm choosing a color that I want to use. So this is sometimes referred to as a flat layer, and it just gives an overall kind of color theme, color depth to your work, just so you can kind of place it a little bit easier before you start adding things like lighting and shadows. So as you can see from this example, I have sped this up. This isn't in real time, because sometimes these videos can go on for far too long whilst you're watching someone colour things in. But I just wanted this to be a nice reference video to kind of show you one way of doing some digital painting. Lots of people are going to have different styles. I've seen some amazing ones where they do some black silhouettes and they kind of cut away different areas. I think Hardy Fowler is a great example of that, and he's got some courses on Udemy. But in this instance, I wanted to go with something more suited to the colours that I want to use in my final overall image. So you can see I've got this kind of soft grey going across most of my design, and if you hadn't quite noticed, this image is behind the paint layer or the inking layer, so the outlines. So it's always easier if your colours are behind that layer so that they don't interrupt the actual main lines that you've done. Some of your areas where you know that it's going to be a little bit darker, or you want it to look a little bit more 3D, you can do a flat layer in a slightly darker colour. And any little details and things that you've got as well, you might want to make those even darker. So just as you've added in the darker areas, you also might want to add in some lighter areas. So this area that I'm trying to paint at the moment is almost where it's going to be like a glass panel, so the passengers would sit into this area so they can see as they're exploring underwater. So I will eventually change this paint so that it's more transparent, and so you can maybe see some of the parts inside. But for the moment I just wanted to show what that could look like as a paler colour, just to make it stand out from the other parts of the vehicle. So for part one, you can see all I've done is I've done outlines and then I've done flat colours throughout. If you join me for part two, we'll be adding shadows and highlights and blending them together. Thank you for watching.